Hi Emma, welcome to the forum.
It's lovely to see so many familiar faces and names.
So I met Emma probably 4 or 5 years ago at an in-person forum when we were discussing BRM topics. I think it was in London. And we just sat there and talked through some of our challenges, and we just had so much common ground. It was an absolute pleasure to meet her at the time, and it just stuck with me how the journey she'd been on with BRM was really quite similar with me. But unlike me, she's managed to move her career on and advance to head of IT delivery. So this section really is about understanding Emma's journey, and because there's lots of paths into BRM and lots of paths onward from BRM, and that career path is something that we wanted to explore, and Emma sprang to mind as being a person that could really help with that. So Emma, would you just like to introduce yourself and your role at the National Trust?
Yeah, of course, Sarah. Really nice to be here. So yeah, I'm head of IT delivery at National Trust. So that role covers live services and a portfolio of programmes and projects that are all facing into what we call our support and revenue and comms and marketing areas. So it's very much the public facing and revenue generating parts of our service. Really wide and varied portfolio. I've got a team of about 60 and the biggest programme in my portfolio now is a team of about 100 people delivering. So it's a really varied, broad, busy role that I'm absolutely loving, and it's keeping me very challenged and very, very, very happily occupied here.
Excellent, thanks Emma. So what were your experiences that led you into BRM initially?
Yeah, it's really interesting when I reflect on that, Sarah. So I realised that actually I've been doing relationship management for most of my career. Actually, I think if I stop and think about what are the things that are my key strengths, regardless of what my job title's been, actually, for probably about the last 15 years, I've been absolutely in the heart of relationship management and leadership of people. But really, I started doing things that I class as relationship management way back in my previous career when I was in the academic world. I was the person who would do a lot of the sort of brokering between different groups, talking to visitors, talking to people we were trying to get funding from, explaining what we were all about and making connections. And I think those are at the heart of any sort of relationship management. So it started way back, probably pretty much when I was doing my PhD actually, and it's carried on all the way through. I kind of officially became a relationship manager when I started managing a portfolio of research at the research councils. That was about owning the relationship with a whole sector of the UK university sector and helping them in terms of accessing funding opportunities. But I moved on then to doing things that were much more around helping businesses partner with universities. So again, that was sitting very much in that middle ground of understanding what businesses were trying to achieve, what their challenges were, what their needs were, and then helping them to find the right people. And a hell of a lot of translating in both directions. I think I've done an awful lot of that, and I'm sure lots of you will recognise that. You know, that's part of the skill of being a BRM, is being able to understand the business, the organisation, and what it's talking about, and then being able to translate that into a more technical space. Only officially became called a BRM type person when I was managing all of the relationships that we had in the research councils with companies that do research in the UK. I think I was head of business relationships at that point, and that was very much about establishing partnerships, but moved into doing that in an IT perspective when I first came to the trust. So I've not got an IT background. I've got a very technical background. My background's in science, but it was once I moved into the National Trust that I was then heading up. I set up our IT BP function, as it was then, business partner function, and grew that. That's where I started here.
Okay, and what was it about them setting up that BP function that how did you set it up, and how did you see a difference that it made?
So I think for me, I was looking for a career step that was going to get me into an organisation that I was really passionate about. And that's one of the reasons I've been at the Trust for such a long time, is I've actually been here for 9 years, incredibly now, because I think the organisation does something that I really believe in and care about. And I could see that all the things I'd done previously, it was an opportunity to kind of take all that to that next step. Didn't have the IT, but knew I could learn it because I do have a technical brain. And of course, you don't have to be a deep technical expert to be a BRM. You need to be able to understand and learn, and you need to have good conversations and ask good questions. But it's not about being the expert. It's about being able to talk to the people who are experts. So initially, my focus was really on understanding the organisation and then understanding the team that I was putting together. I had some people in the team who'd been around for quite a long time and had transitioned from a different role. And then I had new people into the organisation. And it was really looking at what did the organisation need from the role, what was the gap. I also spent time talking to other business partnering functions that we had, because we'd set up business partnering in IT and HR and other areas, finance and HR and other areas already. So trying to understand what else they did. And then looking at how that worked with the organisation. So it was a real mix of what are my team, what are their capabilities, and what are they seeing on the ground, and what do they think the role needs to be about. Strategically, what is our organisation doing? What does it need? And how does it also fit with kind of our wider ways of working in the organisation, and pulling all of that together?
And what did you learn out of that helped you take your next step with your career towards head of IT?
So I think for me, what I got from that was a huge understanding of what our organisation is about. I understand the organisation's priority and strategies. I understand what our business is about, what matters to us. So that was a really fundamental thing, I think, because it gives you a real grounding in what you're talking about. So much of what we do is about understanding all of those things. I think the other thing that was really good was, because I was doing real sort of front-facing into the organisation work, I could see what was needed from a technical point of view, and I was working with all of our teams across IT, because I think that's probably one of the hallmarks of being a BRM. You work with such a variety of people across IT and then across the wider organisation. And I think having all of that broad knowledge, all of that stuff I use so much, and although I'm no longer officially a BRM, actually so much of what I do is still relationship management. My job is so much about engaging with stakeholders, understanding their priorities, managing their expectations, helping them understand what we're doing from a tech point of view and why. Making all those connections still. It's still what my job's about a lot of the time.
Yeah. So when you look to go to head of IT, did you have to do anything else other than BRM to find your way into that role?
I think I'd had a lot of the grounding because of all the wider things I was already involved with. So, I think about what else is involved in my role. As I say, a lot of it's then around leadership, a lot of it's around people, and I'd been managing and leading people for a really long time. So, and that's something I enjoy doing, and I think it's a strength I have. Budgets, I had to get much closer to the budget and resource planning processes, which are an absolute delight. I'm very heavily involved in all of that. But, when you own a portfolio, there's a whole set of things there you have to think about, which I wasn't as close to. So I've learned a lot more about that. And interesting things like how the contract market works, and how you engage with agencies to get contract resources in, and the different things you do when you've got contract resources as opposed to working with people who are permanent members of your team. There's been different things, challenges in that space. I think the other thing that probably has been a change is getting deeper into certain parts of our technology stack. Because obviously I'm now responsible end to end for a whole set of live services and projects and programs that are coming down the line. And I think getting closer to what those things do, how they work, lifting the lid a bit and having a look at them. I'm somebody who learns a lot just by seeing and touching things, so one of the things I did when I changed role at the start of last year was get the team to show me things. Show me our current CRM membership system. What does it look like? What does it actually do? I don't need to be an expert, but I think if you can understand those things, then it helps you with that learning and understanding. And I think that's part of the skill of them being able to talk to somebody in their language, is if you understand it, you can then think about how you communicate it to somebody else.
So what advice would you give to somebody that was thinking that their career path would like to be towards a head of IT? I guess some advice would be, do a BRM role, but what else would you do?
So there's a couple of things that strike me there, Sarah. So I've never had a grand plan from A to wherever I am, I don't know, G or something on my overall career journey. I've not ended up where I thought I'd be, if you take me back to when I started doing my degree and my PhD. But what I have done is thought quite consciously at each stage about what's next. So I think spending the time thinking about your career and what your next step is important. Thinking about what are you doing now and what might you do. So understanding what the possibilities are for you, I think that's incredibly important. So is there something you can see yourself growing towards in the organisation you're in? And that could be sideways. It doesn't have to be upwards always. Sometimes a sideways move is just as important, because it will grow your skill set and give you a different experience. So that's the big one, I think. And I think then it's thinking about, what have you got of what's needed for that, or how might you start to get more involved? So can you get involved in something that's slightly different to your normal remit? You know, can you get involved in another project that's going on? Is there a working group that's looking at something that you could get more embedded in that would give you a different experience? And I think the other thing I'd say is, don't underestimate the importance of networking and being known within your organisation. Now, again, as a BRM, you've got a great opportunity there, because you've already kind of got an open door to talk to people. It's what the role's about. But actually, if it's something you're interested in, one of the things I found is asking people. So, you know, a lot of people in the trust had no idea about my PhD background. And when I've told people about that and asked about what might be going on in that space in the longer term, people are really surprised, because, of course, they've not engaged with me around any of that topic area before. So my PhD is to do with climate science. And you know, that's something else that I think might be a longer term step for me, is to do something more in that space. So it's always having the conversations and making sure people know that you're interested, because if you're known and you've got a good reputation, and then people know that you are thinking about what you might do and you're interested, I know it happens in the other way around. When we're talking about gaps we've got, when we've got, you know, skills issues and recruitment issues, we'll sometimes talk about, oh, well, that person's really great. You know, they're making a really great impact in their job, and I know they're looking for a next step. And that is how some of it works, I think, is just having had those conversations and having that network, and people just knowing you and knowing that you might be thinking about what's next for you.
What do you think could be next for you?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? I've probably got another year or so, I reckon, in this role, because the program I'm leading on at the moment, which is implementing Salesforce for our membership and fundraising, we're going to be going live in spring next year, and then we've got some future drops to do, and I really want to see that through and get that all bedded in before I think about another step, because I want to really see that one through. It's a massive thing. It's the biggest program I've ever been involved in. Beyond that, I don't know, maybe a CIO in another charity might be a really nice next step for me. I'm very motivated by working in an organisation I believe in, but also actually it might be moving into a different technology area in the trust. You know, I really do love the trust. It's a brilliant place to work. I love the people I work with, and I feel really proud to tell people I work for the trust, and feel really motivated by what we do. I'm super excited about, we're doing more and more around climate action. There's got to be opportunity for technology to really do something in that space as well. So that might be another thing, and that would be amazing, because that would bring back some of my PhD from way back when. It might allow me to pull two sort of strands of my interests together. So yeah, I don't know what it is yet, but I guess I'm already thinking about it, and talking to people about it, and understanding what else might be out there.
What is it about the National Trust that makes it a great place to work?
The people is the first thing I'd say. I think the people who work at the trust generally really want to be here, because it is a cause, and you know, it's a charity, so we don't pay the biggest bucks in the world. We can't, because we're a charity, which means people are here because they really think it does matter. And I find that people are really lovely and supportive, really passionate about what they do, really hardworking, and it's sort of the culture of the organisation is something I find wonderful. And actually, it's been really interesting over the last couple of years, you know, going through the pandemic and sort of sitting in a box at home working. It's been so nice being back in the office more and more and starting to be around my colleagues again. It's made me realise how much I was missing that, because although I'm not a property, the culture of the trust, you feel it in the head office as well, the way people are. And then it's really because I think what we do really matters. I was already a member of the trust, you know, before I started working for the trust, and I love going to our places. I get really excited about what we do and who we are. Oh, we've got some background noise from somewhere.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, can people go on mute if they're not? Goodness.
I can't see who's off mute at the moment. I can't see who it is. So if any, could everyone just check that? Oh, thank you.
Oh,
thanks, Estelle. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's many things, and actually when I'm having a challenging day, which I do, you know, the scale of my role means that there are days when it's hard, it's tough, there's a hell of a lot going on, but actually I still come back to, I'm doing something that really makes a difference, and I know that the job I'm in makes a difference to the organisation, and because I love what we do, I know I'm making a difference, and that is massively motivating for me.
So Is it possible for you to link what you're doing with relationships to results?
Gosh, that's a really good question. And it's not something I really think about actually day to day, but I think I'm one of the people who oils the wheels of the programme all the time by the fact I've got the relationships. You know, so if something's a bit stuck, or if it feels like there's a bit of tension or an issue going on, I think the fact that I've got the relationships and the trust of people means that if I grab a couple of people to have a conversation about something, I think I make a difference all the time by doing that. So it's not something that's really tangible, but if I stop and think about even this week, there've been a number of slightly sticky things that me having a conversation with somebody, sometimes one-on-one or sometimes getting a little group together to discuss something, has sorted something. So it's that more than anything else, I would say.
Yeah, that's the trouble that we have sometimes, isn't it? That it tends to be intangible. And yeah, one of the last organisations I was in before this one, the new CIO came in and said we don't need BRMs because everything's going well. And I was saying, but everything's going well because you've got BRMs. And he said, yeah, and he couldn't get it. And sometimes we are, you know, behind the scenes and not necessarily obvious as to how what we do delivers results. So yeah, it's kind of,
yeah, that's so true. And I think one thing I have to say to you all to just remember is that is not a skill that everybody has. You know, actually, the strengths you have as BRMs, that's something that you've got. It's almost an inherent thing. You can't teach somebody to be great with other people and to be great at listening and understanding and translating and having those conversations. You can obviously get better at it, you can practice it, but I think people underestimate sometimes just how important that is. And I know when I'm recruiting just generally, the number of people I get who look really great on paper, and when you talk to them, their people skills are really lacking. And it's so crucial because it's people that get stuff done, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question would be, in an agile organisation, how do you see business partners working in or business relationship managers working in an agile org structure?
Yeah, so we're a real blend at the moment. Actually, you know, we've got some agile ways of working. You know, we've got some teams who are agile who are very much focused on sort of product enhancement. We've got a lot that's still kind of waterfall project type approach going on, and that's right for some things. You know, I think you'll always have a blend. I think BRMs, it's the fact that they can be there understanding what's going on more widely and embedded in the conversations about the strategy and the priorities and the planning processes to really influence what we're doing. But actually I see that I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm starting to see a bit of a shift where I think things like delivery leads and technical product owners that you might have in IT teams are starting to actually become people who are people with BRM type skills. You know, so when you're really close to a particular part of the business and you understand the product set, and then you're there helping to then deliver value because of that, I can see that sort of starting to morph and there being a bit of an overlap. And that's going to be an interesting one to see how that pans out. I think, as I said, at the moment, we've got a real blend of it going on. We've got a bit of a mix. And I think probably our BRMs are not as close to some of those teams who are very much in that product enhancement mode, because that team are working so closely with product owners in the business who are then working into their leadership that actually that's just all happening. Where I think they add value in that process is still when we talk about the bigger annual planning and quarterly prioritization type processes that we run, because that still needs somebody who's got that wider view. And I think the thing that can happen when you're focused on particular product sets is you can lose that wider view of the world and where the possibilities are, because people can become quite blinkered by these are my requirements and these are the tech stacks that I know we've got, and they're not going the other way around of going, but now you've got this tech, you could do all these things over here that would help with other pain points you don't even know you're thinking about.
That's brilliant, thank you, that really helps. I've just got one more question. I can see there's some questions coming in on the chat, so I'll let Estelle or somebody come in and facilitate that in a second. But it's really about advice to business partners advancing their careers. So what particular skills do you think they should have?
So I think that as BRMs, you've already got so many skills that are so transferable to so many things. And that's one of the things I would say to you is don't just think about a label. You know, I still consider myself to be a BRM, even though that's not my label. It's at the heart of what I do. So that's the thing I'd start off with is don't just think about a label, think about what the job is about. I think one of the things that I'd started to get involved with, and I can't remember, I know that Jag was in the conversation when I talked about this before, but I started to get closer to what was going on around our enterprise architecture world. That's an area I think that is a good area to kind of understand more about, because actually if you've got business architects or enterprise architects in your organisation that are really good, they can be a really great place to have a partnership, and it can give you a different perspective and a breadth that will help you to move onward in terms of your knowledge and what else might be a possibility for you. And then, yeah, I think have a look in terms of your kind of leadership and things, really unexciting things like budget and resource management and all those things. I think if you can get an opportunity to even just understand a bit more about them, they're useful things, because the more senior you get, you're going to have to do some of that. It's just part of the job. Sometimes not the most exciting or glamorous part, but actually if it doesn't happen, then things don't get done. So I think about some of those things that are, when you step up, every time you step up, you have to start thinking more widely than you have. That's a hallmark of moving into a more senior role. So start to think about what else is that wider skill set that you would expect to see in somebody in that level above you.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Estelle, have you got some questions on the chat?
Yes, there are some questions. I'm actually going to go backwards, and I'll say that David Baxter says, Emma, great to hear someone who's had a similar journey to get to the HRIT role. He's not alone. That's lovely. So it's great that you're touching souls here as you go. Gavin says, is there anything that you've learnt in your role that you wished you'd known as a BRM?
Is there anything I've learned in the last 2 years that I wish I'd known before? I think because of the conversations I've been in, I've got a little bit more politically savvy than I was. And that's obviously important as a BRM anyway. But I think I've kind of understood more about who does what and who really makes the decisions and who really influences things. And I think I did spend a bit of time as I transitioned role trying to really understand what that looked like in the world I was inheriting. But I think anything you can do in that space, I think don't underestimate that, because that can actually really make a difference for how you get the stuff done you're trying to do in your job today, but actually again can also help you with whatever your next step might be. So yeah, political savvy I think is something not to underestimate.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Aaron, your comment here, if you're still here, I know it was the start of your day. He says, as a CIO, what are the expectations of your technology function from your CEO or top leadership? Anything about technology being a converged strategic partner showing ownership of strategy and results? And Aaron, if you're there, you might want to follow on with this a little further.
Don't know if he's.
There he is. There he is. Sorry, that was me at 6:30 in the morning.
Just turn my lights off.
Hi, Aaron.
So, just curious, from a CIO perspective, what the questions we get a lot is what are the expectations on the technology team as a whole, right? So, IT technology, and so just curious from your perspective, what are you hearing? How are you positioning technology across the organization?
Yeah, I think it's really shifting at the moment, and it'd be interesting to hear if other people do too. But I think with what's happened over the last couple of years, it's accelerated the importance of tech in so many organisations, and it's accelerated the need to move to digital experiences so much more as well. I think we've done a good job of capitalising on that. So during the pandemic, we were obviously all in crisis mode, but actually what we proved is that we are an IT function who will get stuff done and understand what's important. So, we prioritised all the really important things we needed to do, like getting people working remotely really well and enabling additional tools, which none of it's terribly exciting, but it's so important. And what happened was then we started to hear more and more from the organisation, IT are being amazing. IT, we're so glad we've got such a great IT department. Everybody's just doing such good things. So that, I think, was a really helpful thing for us actually from a timing point of view. The other thing we've been doing is, because we've got a couple of really big transformation programs underway, like the Salesforce implementation I'm involved with, we are now starting to turn that on its head and get away from being just a service provider to a look what we can start to do for you now. We've got this platform. Look at the things we can enable that you didn't even know you could do. So obviously right now we're focused on getting that platform over the line, and that's the main thing right now, is to protect our membership income. But once it's in, we're starting to talk already about what we'll be able to do next, and we've been talking about what can we then start to grow. So it's almost going, look, we understand that this is our recovery plan organisationally. This is where technology can help you. This is how we can start to converge with the use of particular investments we've made in recent years. So it's a really exciting shift that's going on at the moment. It varies across the organisation. You know, some of our organisation is so there with us, and it's really a true partnership now, and it is in that programme I'm in at the moment. Other areas don't see it that way yet, but I think what's going to happen is some of these big areas where we've got it going on, people will start to go, oh, I want some of that action over there. That looks really interesting. What's going on? We've also used that to get endorsed by our exec a 5-year technology roadmap, talking about where do we need to focus and how can we start to grow based on those investments. And again, that's another that's a big achievement that will change things. So yeah, it's super exciting actually, all that stuff that's going on. But I really think the pandemic, actually, as hard as that was, and the hours we all put in, it gave us an opportunity. It's that thing of you prove yourself by building the trust around the basic service, and then you can do more afterwards, which is all, it's all good BRM theory.
Yeah. Very good.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the question. I'm going to trust that anybody else that wants to put their camera and mic on will. Otherwise, I'll just keep ploughing through the questions here, or comments, should I say. Hannah, you mentioned it's always good to influence people. Suppose it's more jargon busting. It's been in IT for a majority of your career. You're in the national lottery. Do you want to open your camera and mic, Hannah? Feel like the need to remove language. Here she is. Over to you, Hannah. Good. Thank you.
It's not really a question, though. It's more just empathising with what Emma was saying about language and things, because my background isn't in IT. My degree's not in IT. My education isn't in IT. I stumbled into IT through an admin role and then gradually became project manager, and now I'm in BRM. So it's a strange one. I think the big one for me, it was agreeing really the comment of the language, which is that kind of translation service. I think people go, it's someone to translate, and it's like, actually what I found is it's less, and this might just be my approach because of my background, but it's less about translating the business to IT and more about getting them to understand how the business actually operates. So it's not a translation of, okay, they've got a need, here's the technical requirement for it. It's more actually, this is what they're trying to achieve, and then passing it to people who actually need to. And then the other way around, again, it's not me taking technical jargon and going, hey, this is what this means for you. It's me actually saying to my IT colleagues, what does that mean for people who aren't skilled in that area? I said, in one of my first jobs at university, one of the database administrators, probably one of the best people I've ever worked with, absolute genius, was talking to me about something, and I literally didn't have a clue what he was saying. He was like speaking a different language, and I just turned around and went, explain to me like I'm a 5-year-old. And he was taken really back by it, but I was like, no, seriously, like, it makes sense to you, but it's not making sense to anybody else. And just by having that, and I will say dumbed down, but like having it simplified meant that I could then actually have the right conversation. So it wasn't that I was trying to translate anything. I was just actually trying to understand what it meant. So, yeah. And I suppose that's like one of the key things, isn't it? Is, you aren't a translation service to be an IT specialist who can make it less complicated. It's actually trying to unpick it so that it's not so complicated to begin with.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You summarised that really well, Hannah. I think it is that if I can understand it, if I can ask the right questions, then I can explain to somebody else what they need to understand about that. Because most of the people I work with, they care about what's the impact. What does this mean? What's going to happen now as a result of this? Does this mean something's going to be delayed? Does it mean that part of the service isn't available at the moment? How big is that problem? How easy is it to fix? That's what they care about.
Yeah, but yeah, so it was just to say, I agree. I don't have a question necessarily.
Thanks, Hannah. Well, thank you for coming on to say that you agree, and that's a great topic of conversation. Appreciate that. Thank you, Emma. Pez says, you made a point earlier. I'm not sure which one it was. Great point, Emma. Let people know your ambitions. It really helps. Too many people are discreet about their ambitions, often to their own detriment. And he's also saying get away from the talk of an IT strategy. All people are adding things and it's moving. There's only the business strategy, which is converged with technical needs. The IT bit is a plan to execute.
Yeah, definitely. That is so true.
Gavin, do you want to come and add yours on yourself so that I don't have to translate for you? Marvellous, thank you. Over to you.
If you like. Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask, in your role, do you have regular interactions with the BPs and BRMs, and what are your expectations of them in terms of feeding information to you? So I think in our organisation, feel like we have lots of information, but just struggling to find ways to regularly present that so that it gets acted on at more senior levels.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And actually, one of the things I think has been working for us is we've set up a strategic planning group, which involves our BRMs and then all the heads of, and our CIO joins as and when. But that really works because it means we hear about all of the things that are being talked about that are, kind of the priorities, the requirements, what people are thinking that they might start to bid for funding for, what their pain points are. And then we can make sure that that's then connected into the person who kind of owns that part of what's going on in IT. And then I just try to keep them close to what I've got going on and how things are progressing, particularly when things are in delivery mode, with my program and project managers, because actually when we're in that space, the BRMs aren't normally that closely aligned to what's happening day to day. So just making sure they know, kind of what are the big headlines? Has anything changed? Are we on track? Is there anything they need to be aware of that's become a thorny issue, or anything we might need to start thinking about that's kind of a longer term thing post delivering that particular project? So I think having a forum, having a specific time when you get the opportunity to have those conversations is really helpful. And I know that we rely on our BRMs, to really be the people who help us pull that whole plan together, that view together. So our plan of our projects from an IT perspective, as well as the ones that we're helping to deliver in the organisation more widely, they're instrumental in us forming that view on a quarterly basis and our annual planning cycle.
Great, thank you, Gavin. Comment from Greg, which is be ready for the so what response. And Edward just adds on to Gavin's question. We seem to have to. I thought Edward was coming on then, and it was it's Jeremy Byrne. It's the wrong person. Added to Gavin's question, we seem to have two strands of pipeline. One goes via business partnerships. One, bigger money, goes direct to the CIO executive. Do you have this issue? I'm not sure if I read that very well, sorry.
I think I understand the question though. So and I think actually we have one route now. So we have a strategic planning process and pipeline, and the BRMs are involved, and that's got, right from the really massive strategic programs all the way through to quite small initiatives. And they're involved in talking about all of that. I think having one pipeline really helps. I mean, as a broader issue, it's really hard to resource and plan if you haven't got that clarity of the whole. And if those things kind of start happening over here, somebody's agreeing something's a priority over here, and then you've got another process over here, I think that gets really hard to manage the demand. So the whole demand management process, I think if you can have one pipeline, one hopper, even if you have to then have some different criteria or way of filtering or making decisions based on size, complexity, whatever, I still think it is much more helpful if you can bring the whole together.
That's
Thanks,
brilliant.
Emma.
Thank you.
That's really good.
I was just going to say, I'll pass over to you, Sarah, because it's the next session now. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just wrap up then. And we've been talking about the shift from the single bottom line of profit or shareholder value towards the triple bottom line of people, purpose and planet. And I think everything you've talked about there, your purpose is really clear, and your passion for the planet is really clear, and also your passion for people and relationships is really clear. So I think you've really given us lots of food for thought for everyone's careers, and yeah, you're really nailing that triple bottom line idea as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. It's been really good to talk to you all today.